Um,
Okay, can you give me a short summary? What did you update?
yeah, sure.
Just to have some kind of context.
I have a.
I seen your pull request, but I didn't look at everything very carefully.
Yeah, sure. I can go through this. First, I updated the protobuf files. I generated the client code from these protobuf files. Then I changed show blocks to get blocks. Deploy service changed to from the propose service. Also, so block without triple space moved to light block in 4. The propose method that was used deploy service moved to propose service, and this was some hard part. Actually, the changes that G private in protobuf migrated to G unforgeable, which is now an instance of G private, G deploy, G deployed, or G deployer ID.
Okay.
So these kind of broke some parts of code in the client in the raw core here. So I should introduce here 3 functions: how to construct from GS data the Rolang code for G private or for G deployer ID. So this is lines added, and also actually from GS data I haven't touched. So this is pretty all that I've changed.
Did I think correctly that they changed the name of ID to unforgeable, right?
I will show you. They changed from G unforgeable, from G private to G unforgeable. Yes, and now G unforgeable is a kind of one of 3 instances. I'm not sure how should this be called in protobuf terms, but I will show you what's changed. Where's row types? Here. So previously it was just this G private, and now instead of the G private there is G unforgeable, which is one of instance. Yeah, and this G unforgeable is referenced in the par here. Previously it was just IDs equal IDs G private.
Yeah, this is okay. Cool.
So, do you have any more questions? I can show you.
Added these 3 functions to detect these 3 constructions, and this should be enough, right? But on the other side, do you need some changes? Just thinking. This is conversion to protobuf, like JSON, right?
Yes. So this should change how Rolang object is constructed out from JavaScript object.
Yeah. Okay. And then when you're converting back, do you need to make some changes?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. So let me remember.
Where is existing?
I'm not sure about that because
Maybe this is not. Oh,
actually, yeah, I wrote, yes, it should definitely. It was gprivate here, so I just changed this.
okay.
Actually, maybe I should add also how to.
You have taken the first one, right?
2GS. So I'm constructing here from the role encode to GS.
Yeah.
So maybe I should. SFP unforgeables.
And this
Where is the
one of these three types, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Should I add here code that should set how should I construct GS from gprivate, gdeploy ID, and gdeploy ID? Should I do something like this for three?
Each of
Yes.
Yeah. I think yes, but I'm not sure for what they're used. So I'm not sure they're related to your problem tests.
Yeah. So I have a hypothesis for why is this failing. So this is kind of test. I will now stash changes to show you. So this is the test. So we are kind of comparing two lines, and this long hex string should be the sig. Sig is counted out of this array, and the dest is an unforgeable name. So actually, the thing that is breaking this test, in my opinion, is wrap hash. So actually, this stuff shouldn't change because from object method is the same for gprivate. But wrap hash, and I will show you wrap hash. Wrap hash is calling on the data that we are passing in from GS data. From GS data. And when we see here gprivate, it is constructing gprivate, calling this function. And this is the change, because previously gprivate was return ID, comma, object. And now it is gprivate body, comma, object.
Because it can be one of these three things, right? It can be gprivate body, gdeploy ID, or gdeploy ID, right? One of these three things. Right.
It's not because of this, but because now gprivate is not just a thing; it is kind of subset, one of a set that can be unforgeable. That's why this is a change from ID to gprivate body.
Yeah, we have one level nesting, right, with this type.
Yeah. Yes.
So my question is, in test, there is a construction for gprivate from object, and this object is ID. And what should be this ID? This ID should be one of these three things, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Sorry, I'm struggling with my Zoom. Could you repeat, please?
Can you go
to the test? Yeah.
So this first array, this dest, this dest variable will become this gprivate from object.
Yes.
Right. And you said before this was only one construction, but now G private, this ID inside the G private can be one of these three things, right? Or not?
No.
No. Okay.
Actually, to fit the updated protobuf, we should instead of G private from object, put here G unforgeable. Put here this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why is this old thing?
Put this.
Yeah.
And this is breaking. This is breaking if we change to this, because the wrap hash, because this data is changing. So SIG is changing for sure.
Oh, you already done this in this previous test, right? The same thing when you fill in the data in the previous test. You have the same construction. G unforgeable.
Yeah. I stashed my changes, so this is how it was how this was in the previous release of the Archain API, and this is test is now failing, and I'm trying to figure out why is it failing. So I showed you that in general, this thing, according to new protobuf, should be changed to this thing.
Yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah, and if we change this, so SIG will be changed. So it is definitely will be changed. But also I'm trying to figure out why, if we test changes and have this, why now this test is failing, because call of this method, gprivate from object, should be the same, because it is the same in the generated protobuf code. And I was falling into this wrap hash that turns me that here it is. This is what we changed, and this is why gprivate body. Previously, we would have, when we are making rolling code from GS data, we would have ID and then gprivate body. And now we would have gprivate body, and then we have gprivate. I hope you are following, guys.
Yeah. And just to repeat my question, you make changes, the same change in this previous test for private names, right? And this is working fine, right?
Actually, it's not just. I had to introduce GenForgeable into these and all this stuff. So after I kind of changed everything that I figure out to be related to this change in the raw core, then I constructed the gprivate in a new way via the GenForgeable. And now this test is passing.
Yeah, that's okay. So this part of the code is okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'm not sure that I fixed everything that is related to this change, because fixing this test obviously should include changing this hash.
Yeah, and what you are saying for this signature definitely makes sense. That maybe here is the problem.
Yes, but maybe there my question is, if I just now fixing this test, I like running this test, see that it is failing. Oh my god. Okay, so this test is failing, and I just see it's failing, saying, oh no, you have this, and you should have this, and I just copy from what I should have and paste it here. What I have and pass it here. So it kind of fixed the test.
Oh, you have, this is the address that you generated from this signature, right? Or
Yeah. Yes.
from where is the public key for this for this address?
Did you find the
This is
integration tests?
Oh, hi then.
integrations. Yes, I found them, I believe.
That's where it actually asks the node what the right answer is.
The tests that are working with live node. Let me show you which one of this.
Well, if you look at the package.json thing,
Yeah.
yeah, run the integration test.
Somehow my node is missing. But is these integration tests are the same that are running by the Travis?
No, the Travis thing doesn't actually connect to an RChain node. It's unit tests.
So actually all the live tests passed as far as I remember. But let me try. Maybe you guys can go for something else and I will try to fix my node installation. Because I'm not sure why it is. It should be actually.
The other thing is I should try it. Let's see real quick. Participants. All right, we got me. I've got some, mostly what I did this, I don't know about mostly, but one of the things I did this week was a little.
Oh, cool. It works.
Oh.
So I will run integration tests.
Can you just say npm run integration tests? Yeah.
Okay, no such file. Sorry, wrong folder. Here we go. I need a running our node, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the point. The integration test. Yep.
So at least it has something deploying. Okay. Proposed service is another constructor.
Test our node JS 28.
Yeah, actually, I had one the same kind of issue this is here. If I leave in the index file this line, if I export Casper message out from here, I can't run the tests, all the tests, because it shows me that it cannot construct the deployer service. He prints me that like deploy service is not a constructor, and I didn't get how it relates, and actually I cannot find where it is. Where it is index.js. I can't find where is this exported object is used. So I see this kind of error again.
How these generated files are imported? Because now there is two files for one for deploy service, one for propose service, and before that was only one protobuf file. So I'm just
it's actually, if I understand this right, it's just imported from the row types. Row types proto is the proto which is inside the propose service. Here it is. Casper message.
Casper message.proto file. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, this is.
Is that supposed to still be there?
Sorry?
Is that supposed to still be there?
What's supposed?
Does the core team still publish such a proto file?
Yes, this is the fresh proto files from the 11th release. These are. Casper message. So deploy service.
Oh, okay.
Actually, strange that deploy service is importing Casper message and row types proto, and propose service propose service doesn't import the row type and imports its row type through the Casper message. Can this be kind of issue?
I can imagine it would be. I don't really know. I can't tell. I don't see a smoking gun yet.
I can show you right now. Actually, if I do this stuff, I uncomment this, and I try to run core tests. Did I save this? Yeah. Okay, maybe I should fix something else. But okay, let's proceed with what we have. Okay, I guess we can put this thing for the. We can start with the other issues. What do you think?
Okay, I hope we come back to this before too long. Maybe you can make progress in the background.
Yeah, I'll take a look. Definitely.
But by the way, great progress. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We're very close.
Yeah, but you just sort of took in hundreds of lines of code and went, this is what needs to be changed.
Yeah, it took me about a day to figure out what's where and to connect all the dots.
That makes me feel a little bit like a competent software engineer. Somebody else could make heads or tails of the code. Anyway, all right. In chat, I made a few proposals for agenda requests. I guess I can share my screen, which might. Am I sharing? I can't tell. Share screen. There we go. Put that over there. And put that over there. Okay, I will do. Okay, sensitivity.idr is my, I don't know, Twitter feed lit up with this paper where there's a 30-year-old conjecture and somebody solved it in 2 pages. So I could show you what I typically do with Idris on such occasions. Made a little bit of progress. LEM is this thing. Somebody made an executable formal semantics for the POSIX shell. I found it through this Lobster's site is really nice. It's got this formal methods tag. It's a little bit like Reddit, except it's not as crazy. It's by invitation only and stuff, so it's not as big of a community. The community is kind of smaller.
I got an invite to that the other day. I never tried it.
Yeah, I actually mostly at all these sites I'm just read only, but there was something about Python that I had to post, so I went and got an invitation. We went over the Python thing last week. So LEM is kind of interesting. It's a little bit in the zone of Idris, but it doesn't use dependent types. I don't know how they do their magic. This is me looking at Idris documentation stuff. Okay, what was the other thing? Oh, game host. I've got a little hardware, a little board that runs secure JavaScript, and there's a thing called contract host in the electronic rights transfer protocol, and as a sort of baby step towards that, I did a game host where it reads. Everybody knows Prisoner's Dilemma. You either rat on the other guy or don't rat on the other guy, and if you rat and he doesn't, then you get off scot-free and he spends 3 years in jail, etc. And so the program reads the JavaScript function that's going to be it's going to act like you're part of the game. And games and contracts are essentially the same thing. So it's reading a contract at runtime and interpreting it and stuff and doing so safely, I think.
And this is in this secure JavaScript.
Right.
These contracts.
When you say contract, you talking about a Rolang contract?
Well, Rolang and secure JavaScript have a lot in common. So in this case, I did not write it in Rolang, but if we wanted to, we could, for example, try to mimic the situation in Rolang. There's the little, there's the, I can move this over there. This is the little payoff matrix there. Okay. Somebody flip a coin and pick something.
I'm interested in the LEM, looking at that and then like what its differences are with Coke.
Okay. And let's see, I'm trying to remember. Have we met, Mike?
No, this is the first time I've been to the office hours, but I've been going to the other meetings for the last couple of weeks.
Okay. So let's see how this goes here. So executable formal semantics for the POSIX shell sort of turn my head, first of all, because shell scripting is a nightmare for me. It's always like you forget one quote mark and your whole shell script is completely insecure. And, there's a really cool thing called shell check. Have you guys ever played with that? So if you ever care about one of your shell scripts, paste it into this shell check thing and it'll tell you all the ways that you screwed up. It's a Haskell program that does static analysis of shell programs. So that's the kind of knowledge that I suppose is in here. And this has actually got a real practical, is this the one with the practical? Yeah, it's somebody like, right, Puppet Labs. They kind of care whether their shell scripts work or not. So I guess they did some formal systems engineering here. And if we skip down, a word expand, there's all these weird things that the shell does. Okay. So here's their shell syntax. And
Are they trying to fix the syntax or just to prove the existing syntax? Or
just they're dealing with the real dirty world. They're dealing with the real POSIX spec. We have adequately modeled the POSIX shell. Yeah, there's another paper, the oil or something like that, where they're trying to make a new shell or something. But the whole point of the shell is that it's everywhere and you don't get to change it. Okay, so the shell state. There's things like the file system are hidden in here somewhere. I think, maybe not. Commands, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, then here we are with some semantics. And the tool like draws, I'm not sure if the tool draws that picture, but the tool spits out this LaTeX, I think. The lem tool.
from what?
Sorry, my dog made a noise. Say again?
So, from what?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's their Smush shell. And here's the source code. So.
Oh, you defined. I mean, they have this definition in their language.
Right. Which end is up here? Run test. So their tests are in OCaml. Test.lem. That's something different. I'm looking for like the syntax or something.
And this semantics,
Say again?
they have a file semantics.
Oh. Right. Okay. So if we, see if I can remember how to do this. All right. Control. I got their way to there. And then the other one there. Where did they first start talking about semantics? Okay.
They have open input. Strange.
Open what?
On the beginning, they have open input. It's not just open, it's not just input, it's open.
Open input, is that what you're saying?
No, import. On the beginning.
Open import, I see.
Import, yeah.
I wonder if that means also exported or something. Anyway.
It looks like OCaml.
Type string mode. I don't see string mode over here. Word expansion. I thought I saw something about that over here. There's word expansion.
Expansion is like a macro or not, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you, well, it's also,
Or
expanding star.md to readme.md, I think is word expansion.
oh, okay.
There's various bits of magic. I was hoping to see more of a one-to-one see a correspondence between this LEM source code and the paper over here, exp start. Oop, there we go. That doesn't seem to be the definition of exp start.
Here it is, right? In shim. This is the constructor. Right?
No, that seems to be destructuring it.
Yeah, yeah. Mention.
I'm confused. I don't see a definition.
In prelude.
That seems to be destructuring.
But on the 1013, it looks like constructor.
Oh, I see.
We start off something. Ooh.
Yeah. EXP start, EXP expand, EXP split. Not exactly the same list. Okay, so this is one way to look into this, but we were also curious about how it's similar to or different from Coke.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw it mentioned. Somewhere, on one of those LEM pages, I think they compared it to Coke and.
Yeah, it generates Coke.
Oh.
So this is the LEM source code. Where'd it go?
They're mentioning, at the beginning, they're mentioning code and this is the
Exports to LaTeX, executable code, OCaml, and interactive theorem provers, currently Coke, Hopefall, and Isabelle Hole.
but this is something like a transpile.
Yeah. Now I don't know what the theory behind it is. Where would we find that?
So by its own, this is not like a theorem prover. It's like just generated from other provers, or you can use it in both ways.
Well, I mean, no, it's not. It's not a theorem prover. None of those systems are. Well, they're all proof assistants. They mostly check your proofs. They'll help a little bit, maybe, but which end is up? Okay, header, introduction, installation. Language.md. That looks promising. I don't see any argument that you're not writing down nonsense when you write in this language. I guess you only find out when you convert that one to one of the back ends. I don't know.
What I say about backends? What do you need to do when you generate some backend code? Oh, not.
It seems kind of ad hoc.
I missed the beginning of this discussion. What are we looking into Robash here for the POSIX shell, or what are we?
Yeah, the folks at what is it? Starts with the P.
Puppet Labs.
Puppet Labs care about whether their shell scripts work or not, so they formalized it. And they formalized it using this language lem that is kind of jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing. You write in lem and then it converts to HTML and LaTeX and OCaml and Coq and all kinds of stuff. But I guess you have to be them in order to know how lem works. Doesn't look very mature.
You know, it's interesting, the idea of, you know, trying to prove that any incoming bash script is secure sounds crazy to me, because bash scripts are so inherently janky.
No, they're not trying to prove anything secure. They're just gonna prove what actually happens when you run the shell script. Now, once you know how to do static analysis, you could then write. You know, you could hold one arm behind your back and write secure shell scripts and then prove them secure. But it's not talking. I don't think this is saying that anything about the security properties of arbitrary shell scripts.
Right.
It is formalizing what they do. I guess. Now they must have like used some test suite or something to check that they were their adequacy claims.
On your post on this Lobster page, they are saying about testing and detecting some someone mentioned some bug, and then this other guy was saying that he wanted to run more tests. Are they also want to compare between different shells? Because
well, they just
how many shells are there?
Well, they took the POSIX shell spec, which, you know, Bash and Dash and ASH and a few others are supposed to conform to. I don't think the C shell or Z shell or Fish or any of those conform to the POSIX spec.
Are they trying or just?
No, I don't think C Shell ever tried. I don't think. Oh, here's something scary. How did I do this? My copy of the POSIX spell is back from like 1988 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have shell stuff? 1994. Goodness. There's a list of people on the committee or something in the beginning. Anyway. POSIX.2. No, mine is, I've got .1 on my desk here. That's a generalization of command. Okay, anyway. Right, but a lot of installation scripts and stuff that are trying to be portable are written in the POSIX shell language. I think shell scripting, in my experience, the installation scripts are like these organic things. They land on some planet that they don't really know where they are, and they run a command. They like stick a probe out. Do we have oxygen here? Ah, yes, we have oxygen. Okay.
Yeah, do I have installation in this place or the other place?
Yeah, I never want to write a shell script that does installation. That is like the most thankless part of the computer.
But you know what is my first question? Why they are not using Nix or something?
Well, again, they're trying to deal with the real world. This is the Puppet Labs guys. Yeah, Nix is a revolution, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so unless I hear objections, I'm going to skip over to this this sensitivity thing. And you look at this paper, and the scroll bar doesn't get very small. People call it a 2-page paper. I don't know. It's got a little bit more stuff, but a lot of the other stuff is fluff. And it uses symbols like square root. I know what a square root is. Plus, I know what plus is. V of h, I don't know if I know what that is. Maybe I can read and figure it out and stuff, okay? But, not counting the references and stuff, it's not a very big paper. So we think, oh, okay, do I have a hope of reading this thing? So what I did, okay, so they get right down to business here. Let Q to the n be the n-dimensional hypercube whose vertex sets consists of vectors in 0, 1 to the n, and two vectors are adjacent if they differ in exactly one coordinate. So that was a good 3 hours worth of work.
Only 3 hours, okay.
Okay, so it took me a long time to figure out how I was going to make a graph data type. And what I ended up with is basically a graph is some type for the vertices plus an edge function from, well, it's an edge data type constructor, if you like. It goes from v comma v to type. And if you can give me both of those, then you've made a graph. And we'll see how that works in a little bit. All right. Okay, so bit is some type, and bit is fin2. So fin, we infinity, yeah, here's fin. Okay, fin is numbers strictly less than some bound. Comes from finite sets. So they've got this. In functional programming, you often have lists. So nil, and then you can con something on the front of the list. And then in Idris, they have vectors of a given length. So it's a list along with an integer for the length. And then if you want to index that list, you can use the dependent types to know that your indexes are always in bounds. So you don't have to do runtime checks. And so basically, fin2 means that is an index into a vector of length 2. So it's either 0 or 1. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And bit vector of n is a vector of length n bits. That's not too hairy. All right. And then it says two vectors are adjacent if they differ in exactly one coordinate. So has anybody ever heard of a Hamming distance?
With the error corrected columns.
Yeah, so if you've got, like if you write down 1110010, and then you write 001011001. So the distance between those are different, that's not different, that's different, not different, oops, not different, different. So the Hamming distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Everybody knows what Hamming distance is now? Anybody know what Hamming distance is?
So the number of changes.
Right. Okay, so here's my definition of Hamming distance. If you've got two empty vectors, then the Hamming distance is 0. And if you've got two vectors whose first bits are x and y, then you compute the Hamming distance of the rest, and then you check, and if x and y are equal, then you just keep the Hamming distance the same, and if x and y are different, you add 1. S is the successor of the natural number. All right, so now we know how to compute the Hamming distance of any two vectors, and we can. Idris is fun because it's executable. Oh, I killed the inferior thing because it was using a lot of RAM. If we go down here and we say Hamming distance, what's it going to say?
2.
Ta-da! What's that one going to say?
This is an error.
Say again?
This is an error.
That's an error. That's right. They both have to be vectors of the same length. That's what's the difference between a list and a vector, is that a vector carries its length around with it. So those are not both vectors. Those are not both bit vector n for some n. Okay, so you can construct a adjacent datum if your Hamming distance is 1. And then I have a.
What does it really mean? Between two graphs.
No, 2 points in the hypercube. I mean, if you have a hypercube of 3, where n is 3, that's the world we live in. It's just basically you draw a cube. All the edges of a cube. Each of them is different. In fact, we can compute this. Let's see. Those are all the bit vectors of length 3. I could probably get it to spit out all of the, but they're basically, okay, so here's the origin, right?
Okay.
Oh, no, I can. And then X, Y, Z. So that's going up one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are adjacent. They differ by 1 bit. But if I go up one and over one, they're not adjacent.
Oh, I see. Oh.
It's like the edges on the cube.
Correctly.
Okay.
Which is exactly what they said. It's the n-dimensional hypercube graph. All right. We're having fun so far. So now we know what is adjacent is. Q to the n is make graph bit vector n adjacent. Okay. And then for an undirected graph G, we use a standard graph theoretic notation delta G for its maximum degree. All right. So that turned out to be non-trivial. So degree, so this definition of graph tells you nothing whatsoever about the vertex type. So the vertex type could be reals or unicorns or bananas or whatever. And you can't necessarily enumerate the reals, right? And the only way I could figure out to do the degree is to like list out the edges and check whether they're adjacent to some edge. And if you want to list them out, then I made this thing that says, well, now you have to be able to tell me the elements of some type. Okay. So if you've got a graph and a proof that the edge doodad is decidable, in other words, for any two vertices, I can decide whether there's an edge or not. Because again, this thing didn't tell you anything about the edge function. It might only be semi-decidable or something crazy like that. You might be able to tell, this will tell you when there's definitely an edge, but it won't tell you when there's not an edge. So if I've got a graph over a finite vector vertex type where the edges are decidable, and I've got some vertex, then I can tell you its degree, how many things are connected to it. And the way I'll do that is, I probably don't need this linked list, it can probably tell. The types right, yeah. It's the length of filtering to bool. It's basically the length of the list of members that are connected by edges. And the to bool thing says, okay, so the members gives you all the elements of that type. And so we trundle over them and we check whether there's an edge from vertex J to vertex I. If there is, true, if not, false. So then we take the length of the list of trues, and that's its degree. Anybody want to guess?
I don't understand what Q3 means.
It's the hypercube in 3 dimensions. It's Q to the n, where n is 3. Let's simplify. Let's go 2 dimensions. A hypercube in 2 dimensions is a
Square.
Square. How many things are adjacent to the origin? How many?
Two.
Two. You win the prize.
So I would have thought degree is like degree, like almost degrees of freedom. Is it not just the length of the vector?
Nope, it is not.
In Greg's paper, he was saying that the maximum degree is that all vertices are connected to each other.
Right. So the degree of node 1 here is 1. The degree of node 3 is, oh, they got them labeled by their degree. There's no edges connected to this guy. There's 2 connected to this guy. There's 5 here, 1, 2.
Wow, he's got an edge to himself.
That is somehow counted twice. 1, 2, 3. Oh, both ends of it. And what will that do?
I think it's 4.
Anybody else have a thought? That's an error because we didn't give enough dimensions in our, but you're essentially right. All right, so that's the degree of a node. And then I couldn't find, I thought surely maximum of numbers in a list is in the standard library, but I couldn't find it, so I defined it there. They do have the max between 2 things. So for an undergraph G, this is just what's there. Delta G is the maximum degree. So max degree of G and DEC is, we're going to go grab all the vertices and we're going to take the degree of each one and get the max.
What this arbitrary is doing? You're calling this before members.
Yeah, it was sort of to get off the ground. It's an arbitrary vertex in G. It was because, where'd it go? My finite interface, I not only had to be able to say, okay, here's how you get a list of all the members in that type, but I had to sort of bind V in the first place. And so I had to start from something. And so I said, okay, well, I'll start with the graph, and then that'll give me access to one of its members. And then given one of its members, now I know its type, and so I can list them out. I could, basically, if I didn't have that, it would say, it kept saying, I can't find an implementation of finite. So
Like a identity? Like a monad identity?
Well, yeah, well, right. It ends, well, there aren't any properties of the one you want to pick out. You just have to be able to pick out any one. It's just sort of to bootstrap the bindings of the, it's to be able to find this implementation of finite so that you can list the members.
Right. Sometimes I do that in functions with like I'll do a decal type on a thing, so I can extract the type out of it and then do something I want with it.
And I tried that. Oh, I probably could have done that.
I've never used this language, so I don't know. But it looks pretty, it kind of looks Pythonish to me. But you can like define the fundamental things you're working with.
Oh, I see. In that way, yeah, it's sort of got metaprogramming in that way, and that the types and values are in the same space. So this is kind of fun. When it helps you write the program. So you say, "Would you please, start that thing for me?" And then, what are the cases that X could be? Well, the only way you can make a graph is with the make graph constructor. So if I do, and then tell me if that's okay. Yeah. So. Wonder if I can get rid of arbitrary now. Can't find implementation of finite time. I probably could do that if I fidgeted around with it some more, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep that though. Where were we? Okay. Okay, so we did maximum degree and maximum degree, and then there's a bunch of stuff that I skipped over. He's saying, well, these other guys proved something or other, and here's my main theorem, but I'm not proving it yet. And he talked about if H is an induced subgraph, and I would have had to go read Wikipedia some more and stuff, and so I skipped over that. And then there's a lot of blah, blah, blah. And then here, this is the part where it looks like, again, he's picking up with comprehensible definitions. So it says for X in 0, 1 to the n, where they write 0, 1 to the n, I write bit vector n. Does that make sense?
Right. It's like the possible values are 0 and 1, and there's n of them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then when they write 1 to n, that's basically fin n. So where are we down here? Okay, for X in 0, 1 to the n and a subset S of indices from 1 to n, we denote X to the S, the binary vector X with all indices in S flipped. Okay, so I've got this thing that says, here's how we're going to flip one bit. If it's 0, it's going to turn out to be 1, the successor of 0, and if it's 1, then we're going to turn it to 0. And by the way, we've got this thing that says default total. So if we forget a case, yeah, not total because there's missing cases. Okay, so flip bit's not very exciting. But then there's flip bits, which is what this thing is talking about. So S is a list of numbers from 1 to n, and then X is a bit vector n, and then we're going to give you back another bit vector n. So if you don't flip any bits, you get X back. And then if you flip some index and then some more, index 0 and then some more i's on X, then first go ahead and take care of the rest, and we'll call that X0. And then we're going to update at index 0 using flip bit on X0. So this is kind of fun to play with. Let's see, 1 and 2 in 0, 1, 0. Somebody tell me what that's going to come back with.
1, 1, 0.
It counts. This is index 0, index 1, index 2. So.
Oh, 0, 1, 1.
Fin3 is not a numeric type. Oh, what? That is not a numeric. What are you talking about? Oh.
What is this first construction that you're doing? Oh, okay.
So when you write 3, that's short for from integer 3. And, you know, where this is a function in some interface. So that can be, you can say the nat3, the so from integer.
Yeah, he's doing automatic conversion from nat to.
It's like a typecast.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah. It's yeah. So why? So that was it. Just because I forgot my comma? Yeah. Lists have commas in them. There. Okay. So we started with 0, 0, 0, and we flipped bit 1. So remember our bits thing is fin2, which means either FZ, which is the finite, where's fin again?
Oh, they're not Z and S, they're FZ and FS.
Right.
Okay.
So if you just write Z, that's the natural number 0, and this is the natural number 1. But if you write FZ, that is the element of, so let's see, the nat, or sorry, in 4, that's, it stands for the numbers between 0 and 3. So if I write 5, blah, that's a compile time error. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is like upper bound that you can.
Right. It's designed to be an index into a vector of length 4. And so you can't say, you know, give me the thing at index 5, or you get a compile time error. Okay.
It's just showing that as like bounds checking in the list.
Yeah, it's doing balance checking at compile time. That's what the fin construct is for. It stands for numbers up to, but not including 2. Okay, so that was flip bits once more. So we can flip not any bits. And if we flip, you know, if we started with 1, we end up with 1 FZ. And if we flip the second bit, it'll go back to 0 and so forth. And if we flip 0 and 1, or 0 and 1, and they'll all end up being 1s, FC, FC, FC. Okay, so that's flip bits. So when they write x to the s, we write flip bits sx. Good so far? And then they start to get to the stuff that's actually relevant to the sensitivity degree, to sensitivity conjecture. For some function from bit vectors of length n to just a single bit, the local sensitivity of f at x on the input x is defined as the number of indices such that the bit flipped. No, the number of indices such that the outcome of the function is different if you flip that bit. Okay, so local sensitivity is if f is some function from bit vector to n to bit, and x is some bit vector of length n, we're going to give you back a number. So we're basically going to write out 0 to n except in the FZ world. And when you take a natural number and map it into the fin world, you may or may not win. Remember, if you say fin 4 of 5, that's an error. So in order to have a function that does that, it has to return a maybe. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah, so if you say nat to fin numbers up to 4, I'm going to give you 5, it's going to say nothing, I think.
So you're searching
The other way around.
how to bind.
Nat to fin 5 in the space of numbers up to 4, can't do that. All right. Now, I know that at compile time that this is always going to win, and I could have proved that or whatever, but I didn't bother. So basically, I'm going to take the numbers 0 to n, I'm going to map them into the FZ world, nat to fin, and then I'm going to keep all the maybes and throw away all the nothings. Keep all the justs and throw away all the nothings. I happen to know that there's no nothings, but I just left it alone. So indices is basically FZ, you know, FS of FZ, that meaning 1, 2, the blah, 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 up to n. So those are our indices. And then the local sensitivity is the length of filtering over the indexes where f at x is not equal to f at flip bits I of x. This is f at x not equal to f at flip bits I of x. Pretty little translation, right? This is when Idris is fun. So if we make up a function, can we do this? I forget how to do this. Right. So const1 is the function that's always going to return 1, right? It doesn't really matter what bit vector you feed it. And so let's see what the local sensitivity of const1 is at the bit vector 0, 0. It's 0.
So if you give it a function which can accept a bit array,
yep,
then it will spit out its sensitivity.
Right. Right. If we flip this bit, the function doesn't change. If we flip this bit, the function doesn't change, so it never changes.
Can you give it? Are there any like simple hash functions you can give that local sensitivity thing?
Yeah, we can do something like let's see.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, I don't know if Idris standard library has like any built-in hash functions.
Oh, that's a good point. Probably does. Oh, it thinks I'm on mobile now that I've made the window small. Oh, that's the other thing I think I can do. Idris, apropos hash. It found the one that I wrote. Module data.hash. Okay. I'd have to convince it how to make a bit vector into a hashable. I have to define a hash function over it. Let's see.
Can you use this for Boolean? You have two cases.
But that's only going to give me, I mean, salted hash 64 true is either 0 or it's 1 all the time.
Yeah.
Right? But let's just make up some stupid hash function, like and hash 1. Actually, we'll play a little. Okay, please make this function. Start making this function for me. Please case split on that. We'll decide that one's 1. And we'll hash 1 of x's. And then we'll do x times. But times. Hold on. We'll case split this guy. Oops. So if we've got 0, then we'll just use the hash of x's. Hash 1 of x's. And if it's a 1, we will flip bit hash 1 of x's. Okay, what's that going to do?
What?
So that's 1 written in index form, in bit form. And then what's that going to do?
FZ. We'll flip it.
You win the prize. And this one?
FSFZ.
Yep, you win the prize. Okay. So local sensitivity of hash 1 of so it's sensitive to all 4 bits. This is fun. Okay, and so that's the local sensitivity, and then the sensitivity is the maximum local sensitivity for any of its inputs. And that's, we're going to take local sensitivity, we're going to enumerate all of the bit vectors, make them into a list, because enumerate gives you back a vector, and you can always make a vector into a list by throwing away the length. So we're going to try each one of them out, and we're going to take the max. So the sensitivity of hash 1, it's going to ask us what the heck n is, I think. Right.
Where do you use X in sensitivity? What is
I shouldn't have because it's not supposed to be a function of x. The sensitivity doesn't have, this part doesn't have an x in it, right?
Okay.
Our hash function is quite sensitive. Kind of a good thing. I think that's as far as I got. Then they have this local block sensitivity is the maximum number of disjoint, blah, 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 blah. And it was like 3 a.m. at that point. Like my brain ran out of fuel. And the difficulty goes up. So that one's not too much more. This is probably 5 or 6 lines of code or something. It's not maybe one auxiliary function. But then after that, conjecture, theorem 1.3. I think you have to go read this other paper in order to get the proof of theorem 1.3, but since it was accepted in the literature, they just accept that as a theorem. But I would have to go get the paper and actually write out the proof. So I skipped over that. Proof of the main theorem. Yeah, this subgraph and submatrix and eigenvalues and stuff. Eigenvalues I've never quite had my head around, but I almost had it last night. So that would probably be a...
Are these the values that are not changed under matrix transformation? Or
They sort of stay in the same direction. They're vectors where if you multiply the matrix, the vector only gets bigger or smaller. It doesn't change direction. I don't have a sort of working intuition for these things, though. So this would have been a good exercise for me, like 30 years in the making, sort of having a vague understanding what an eigenvector is. I'd have to actually I'd have to teach it to the stupid computer, then I might understand it. But now that I think about it, last night it looked like a huge cliff where it was like, okay, I'm playing with Tinker Toys, this is easy, and all of a sudden, woo! But now, in the light of day, it doesn't look so hard. But anyway, you sort of get the idea.
But what is the main theorem? I still don't have like something that I can wrap my head.
The main theorem?
Yeah. What?
Okay, so I'm just barely.
I mean, all of this stuff with sensitivity. Now I have like I have like a more understanding. How do you get there, right?
Right. Okay. So there was some article I read that said that there's a bunch of where is it? I think it's in here actually. The block sensitivity is known to be polynomially related to many other complexity measures, including this certificate complexity, decision tree complexity, quantum theory complexity, the degree of a Boolean function as real polynomials. So they've got these combinatorics results for everything except sensitivity. They've got this block sensitivity is related to all these other things, but they don't know how the block sensitivity is related to the sensitivity.
And what is the block sensitivity?
The local block sensitivity is the maximum number of disjoint blocks such that for each block, the function value changes when you flip those bits. And then the sensitivity is the maximum over all the inputs.
So
that's kind of like if you break the array up into blocks, because not every function is going to be as sensitive as the one you made where it flips every bit.
Right.
So you're going to have to, the block sensitivity would be like, try breaking it in half, do each one of those bigger blocks change rather than just the bits.
Right.
So the point was supposed to be that as a measure of complexity, the sensitivity was had been unrelated to other complexity measures, and now they've related it to other complexity measures. Is that
right? Well, they had bounds that were like exponential, but he's given a polynomial bound. And I don't even know how to read that out of this, because here's the main theorem, and I don't see sensitivity anywhere in it. It must be some corollary.
so? Just to put the Hamming distance into the context of where we've run into it before, we talked about the Hamming distance with respect to the error correcting codes.
Right.
As you know, Hamming distance as being one of the an example of.
I mean, Hamming distance. Ham is the same guy as ham radio. I'm pretty sure. Oh, look, nice cube pictures. We should have been here earlier. That's funny. I didn't even use this page when I thought of Hamming distance, because Hamming distance is nowhere in this paper. It was just occurred to me as the way to figure out whether something's adjacent.
Oh, cool.
You might be interested in there was a YouTube video called by the Stand Up Maths guy today, where they go over the knot problem, where it'd be actually interesting to watch. It's not that long. Yeah, Matt Parker had a YouTube video where they talk about the knot problem, where if you have like 3 points and you hang something from strings, like a single string from those 3 points, how do you make it so that when you take away any one of the points, then the entire thing falls down? And they discovered it was related to the Hamming distance theories, because you basically can solve the problem by constructing like a cube like you've done, and if you traverse the cube edges and reach the origin, then you've created the solution to this problem. And that same solution applies to braid theory, knot theory, Hamming distances, and it's kind of interesting how many different computer science problems can be solved by visualizing things as these cube indexes and then just like traversing it. That sounds like what this guy did with his paper.
Yeah, speaking of Idris being like Python, here's Python's Hamming distance thing, and you get runtime errors if they're different lengths. So that's as far as I got in that part of Idris land. Ooh, we did not end up with Isaac Dufresne here this morning.
Yeah.
He was here earlier, wasn't he?
Oops, was he?
No, I didn't see him.
And what about Nutzipper?
He was here earlier.
Well, I know. Yeah, we were. I just wonder if he had any luck with the. Okay.
What is your suspicion then? Can be a problem with just the signature defining text?
Can I do what?
Maybe the problem is just with this signature, this address that is generated from the public key. Maybe now the source for this hash function for generate a signature is now has different input, so the address is different.
Yeah, let's do some actual R-chain stuff for a sec.
Yeah, I have a question about rolling in peak. So, what would you expect if you have 4 in the peak, 4 in the peak in par, and you have on one channel you have a 4 normal linear bind, and then you have a peak, and you send on this channel. What do you expect for the peak? To be fired every time, or just sometimes?
Sometimes I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Because okay, if you have 2 normal binds, one of the binds will be fired. Okay, this is expected. But if one of them are peak, I was thinking that peak will always be executed.
Sorry, Tomislav. I have a very, very, very low battery. Can I briefly
Sure.
show you what I have?
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I will start sharing my screen. Okay. So actually, all the tests passed except the first one, and it's kind of surprising because, at least my current understanding is that test is failing on this line. This one, no, test nodes 28, this. So while constructing the R-node instance, and all the live R-node and live rock tests are using this. And the error is that proposed service is not a constructor, which is an error that I found seen while I didn't comment this line. If I comment this line, I have all tests failed with deploy service response is not a constructor. And this is kind of issue that I don't know how to start thinking about it, because it's auto-generated code.
There's parts of this that are fragile and no fun. One is dealing with the generated protobuf code, and the other one is dealing with the 2-byte array hash results and stuff. I mean, getting the actual bits to line up. So I saw that you regenerated all of the protobuf code. And in some cases, I think I had to manually hack those things.
Because propose is not in the same file now. It's in different file.
Yeah, actually.
And before it was in the same one.
Yes, it was. But this issue, as you can see, that proposed service is not a constructor. I've seen such an issue that is kind of issue when you are I don't know. For example, I see here. Let me show real quick.
And this line 68, this was commented or uncommented before?
This was uncommented. where is it? Uncommented, and when I comment it, tests pass. But now when I added one more constructor, the same. This is so. I didn't understand why. Non-API, why does these objects are pulled from the generated deploy service file, and then we have a proto definition out of the same proto file, and then we are constructing the client out of gRPC with a load packet definition method, but not directly from this generated file.
Yeah, this is me being schizophrenic, I'm afraid.
Sorry?
This is me changing my mind about how things work over time.
Did you have imported before? Does it this proposed service before? You know, it was part of the deploy service or not?
Previously, the proposed service was documented inside the deploy service proto, and now it is just in another file. So it's actually the same proposed service, but it is described in the another file.
Do you know if the packages are the same? Let's see.
I'm thinking if you can import this proposed service in the same way as the deploy service.
Well, hang on. Do you see line 25?
Yeah.
How it goes, okay, get the deploy service and then look inside .coop rchain Casper protocol. So look at the deploy service.proto.
Yeah, sure. I feel that my computer will shut down right now.
Okay, maybe I can look at this. I just have to.
Yeah, it's just a minute. Deploy service.
That's proto file.
No, the proto file.
Proto file, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
so line 5 there, it says package Casper. Okay, so that's sort of, that map lines up. And then if you look at Casper message.proto, okay, it's also in that package. And I don't know what other, because row types is not in that package, I don't think. If you look at row types.proto, yeah, see, it's not in any package.
And propose.
It is in the package.
And you need this constructor, right, for proposed service. This is the
yeah, is it this constructor?
maybe there is maybe you need import this constructor. You know, now that is in different file. Does this make sense?
And maybe you have to do that same thing with the proposed service JS, just import that, then it can find the constructor.
Nazik, are still here?
I think his battery might have died.
Yeah, it's just frozen screen.
So, do I have any, oh yeah. Why do I have a bunch of stuff? I haven't worked on this stuff in a long time, but I had stuff. That stuff that I just said I was schizophrenic about looks like I was in the middle of changing it.
Yeah, he's using this propose. Propose service from propose.
Okay, so I think I got his stuff checked out now. Then what do you do? No, that's not very good. Oh, okay, so it's the same one test that he was tripping over. All right.
Did you want to share your screen?
Oh, I'm not sharing. Is that the same failure he was getting? I guess we can ask Travis. Huh? Yeah. Expected 6.8, actual 1.0, blah, 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 blah. So suppose we just say Close enough. Now what?
I think this is not important. What version of Node.js should I use? With 12 is not working, right?
Really?
Not sure. Fine, some native libraries compiling.
I didn't specify what version of that.
I'll try with 11.
Okay. $342. Okay, so here's the example. Yeah, I think I was in the middle of addressing just the issue he raised, which is that all of this stuff. No, not that. Going away from gRPC protoloader. What changed there? Oh, the plus sign is actually flow syntax. Never mind. Yeah, this stuff here. Oops. Ah. Where'd it go? The heck? Missed stuff. Yeah, because he pointed out that I was loading the protobuf stuff both at compile time and at runtime. And so I had started to take out the runtime stuff and just do the compile time stuff. Wow, looks like there was a lot of stuff there. Oh, darn, I just lost the file timestamps. I wonder when I was working on that. Yeah, so on the one hand, he just had one unit test failing, but on the other hand, I think there's actually quite a bit more to do.
So have you looked at Louette's Archain tools at all?
At who?
I don't know. How do you say his name? Lovett, the French guy?
Oh.
Where is it?
This name here, the Archain Toolkit. I think I did a flyby.
I cloned it in the Archain community. I didn't really. he advertises it as a something that can be used in place of the Archain API.
Yeah. Looks pretty cool. How is he getting away with no gRPC API or gRPC dependency? That's a good trick.
I noticed in the test he includes some gRPC
Some gRPC what?
library or whatever. I don't know. I have to find it. I should find it.
gRPC any. So he takes those as inputs. That's interesting.
Maybe he's doing that to kind of like you would do with tests, like where you make a mock.
Right.
You know, if he's testing his thing against a web server, he doesn't actually want to do that. He wants to like mock the test server so that he emulates it or whatever.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do to take in the gRPC, because gRPC has ambient access to the network or whatever. So anyway, it's a good thing to pass it in. It's not great to pass it in as an any, but it's kind of cool. So what was it again? Package JSON. Does he has it as a dev dependency? Yeah. Okay. So for testing, you need it. And I guess if you were going to write an app, you would have to include this yourself. That's kind of cool. Oh, and he also has Protoloader. Let's see. Okay. So it looks like he did not check in the TypeScript version of the protobuf stuff. Whoa.
Interesting. If you look under tests, under listen for data at name, under tests.
Yeah, these are dev dependencies. I was just looking at this dist gRPC. Did he write this code? Commit number 4. I can't tell what's going on there. Oh, here we go. Here's the TypeScript. I see. The dist is the compiled version of the TypeScript. Import blah, blah, blah from /models. Buffer. It's kind of like any. Interesting. He's kind of hand ported a certain amount of the protobuf stuff to TypeScript.
Sounds like a bad move to me.
It's an interesting angle. I mean, because the generated code, I then had to sort of hand edit sometimes. It was kind of a pain to deal with sometimes. But yeah, when you get a par, you get to put a bunch of Rolang back. You look for the receives and you get any. Oh well, then you're on your own. Odd, because the protobuf library that he's using will give you pretty nice TypeScript, I think.
You mean it's not nested too much?
Let's see here.
Arthur told me that this generator in Scala is also like not very nice because all of the properties are optional. So, you know.
Oh well, that's not. That's the real type.
Yeah, but you know that something must be that something will have the value always.
No.
And now I see that they put some attributes inside the protobuf to say this is not optional. I'm not sure what is the attribute.
Well,
It's not a happy for that.
every protobuf value has a default, and when you don't put anything on the wire, that implies a default.
Yeah, but he was saying that you know in their code, these types are they're using these types in their code. You know, so they have much of this properties option. So you need some kind of wrapper between to say, okay, I know that I will raise an error if all of these properties are.
Yeah, but you do have to check at runtime because the bits that come over the wire might not have specified a value, and you better not assume there is one.
But you know, you want to have benefit of generated types, but you need to write wrappers around all of them. So in a sense, you know, you have all of this generation, but you cannot use this type directly. You must have your own types.
Well, it's part of the gRPC contract, for better or for worse, for schema evolution or whatever. Every field has a default and can always be omitted and stuff. So, you know, you could write your own RPC thing altogether that would make all the illegal states unrepresentable. But if you want to share tools with your friends using gRPC, then you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a way, it means, what heck, why don't we use JSON?
Yeah.
We have to check everything at runtime.
Yeah. Because you want to check the whole deploy. You don't want to check the specific property and say, you know, you're missing this property. You don't care about deploy if you are missing some property. You just care about the whole thing.
Right. So this is the generated TypeScript. This doesn't look too bad.
Oh. Yeah, this looks pretty nice.
But yeah, you know, everything's got a question mark.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that. So this is my question. Is it worth to do this conversion? You know, this conversion between types, like manually, and just specific for Archie API, because then we can be more specific how we handle changes, right? We can support multiple versions and say, okay, we now know what is the change, and we will convert to the correct thing for the next version. But we can write, we can have more stable interface for DApp developers, and for Node we can convert some changes.
Yeah, I asked a little bit about schema evolution and stuff, and basically the core team's position right now is we're not at 1.0, so everything is subject to change without notice. But yeah, at some point when they go to mainnet, at that point, if they ever add a field, they're going to have to, you know, the consumers are going to have to be able to support before and after that field. But that's exactly the situation that they're in with it, where everything's optional. It just means you always add your fields at the end. In a way, it's not really any more difficult to support multiple versions as long as people do that.
But for example, I will start on GraphQL version. So I will define types, and I will say exactly what is required, what is not. You know, because you can more easily know what you need to specify. I will start with Arch and API. Just I will use it directly, but I'm thinking just to rewrite it manually.
Yeah, it's a question of how much you want to just sort of use the gRPC tooling and how much you want to make your own layer on top.
But I suppose that this API will not change so often. So, if we have all of these things manually written, I think it's completely fine. So I think, I'm not sure if there will be some drastic changes in protobuf.
Right.
But I was looking at the conversion directly between types, protobuf and GraphQL, and just convert all the primitive types, like all the terminates in a sense, and then write some kind of wrapper around this other constructors. Not sure.
Did you happen to look at the talk about GraphQL with generalized abstract data types?
I didn't look at this talk. I must look at it. But I was on his tutorial on ICFP. So this was like a example in OCaml. So, but in this talk, he was using Haskell or OCaml.
I think
I seen OCaml, but because I was thinking that for GIDTs, I was thinking that Haskell is in question.
Yeah.
Did you try something or?
No, I have not dug in yet.
This implementation was very nice. You could specify all the types in OCaml, and this code will just generate all the GraphQL schema.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Because I've thought about using GraphQL every once in a while. Like I was gonna, the Bounty system had a SQL database, and I was gonna make a GraphQL endpoint for it. And I thought, oh, surely there's some tool that will take the SQL schema and just automatically make all the GraphQL stuff. No, you have to go through every column and every table and tell it how to map it. This is boring.
Yeah, but you have a very nice tool. It's Prisma. I don't think it's like an official version, but it works very nicely. I was trying with Postgres SQL. I think it's working with Postgres or MySQL. And when I was looking, you could not order with multiple properties, for example, something like that. But he's changing this tool is changing the schema as you changing the types. So you write the types in the file, and you just apply the changes to your Prisma server.
Okay, but the other way around. I have already got a SQL database.
So, yeah, I'm not sure if you can just convert from existing schema. Maybe this is also possible. Just to generate the file, and after that you can continue with.
Does this do GraphQL?
Sorry, what?
Well, you said Prisma, right?
Yeah.
Does it do something with GraphQL?
Yeah, this is directly to GraphQL. So.
Oh, there it is, native GraphQL syntax.
Yeah.
I've been writing a database library and C++. I just have the people define their schema, like schema quotes, in the native, syntax of C++ objects. I'm not a fan of this generated
Oh, this is just a syntactic sugar. You have the whole API in JavaScript, or I'm not sure if other languages are supported. So this is just like the easier way to construct all of these types. From JavaScript classes. You say new type and you define all the properties, and so. But yeah, I also I'm not too much fan of writing strings in assembly language.
Yeah, I think in the future, I think like the trend we're going to see is people, I think we're not going to be using proto buffs. I think we're just going to be specifying the serialization and then just using applications that follow specifications rather than, constructing generated code.
Yeah.
Say that again?
You need like more higher explanation of the protocol of this API. Right? Not just about, for example, GraphQL is a little better than REST, but it still doesn't give you this complete specification like of the protocol. You just have endpoints. So you cannot say you must call this endpoint, and after that you must call this endpoint.
Have you ever looked at session types?
Yeah. I was listening a presentation of session types in another part, and session types gives you this notion of real protocol, and with rolling you will be able to specify exactly session types. So.
Yeah. Well, if we ever get there.
Yeah, I've never heard of session types. But, the type of thing I'm talking about is basically like JSON. You have a protocol native to JavaScript, but can be used by any language that is able to represent that small subset of fundamental types. And I don't think JSON is the best because it's, you don't always want to serialize your stuff into a human readable format. But I think things like that are way better than protobufs, where you have to make a schema and then generate serialization code.
Yeah. This is matter of defining this structure that communicates between parties. This is like a language, and Greg was saying you want to have like a language of that you are sending between programs, right? And this language you want to be total. So all of the communications in that case will be total. You will know that this other party when decode the message and execute this language, it will tell you.
Right.
We need this kind of way of we need protocol defined as a language, not as just endpoints with data.
Yeah, so session types, you can make an API for a network protocol so that if you put an int where you meant to put a string, you get a compile time error, right?
Yeah, and not only that, you can say I'm sending ping and I'm expecting pong.
Right,
So,
and if you don't respond with a pong, you get a compile time error.
Yeah.
In the libraries I've worked on, it's easy to make your serialization compile time like statically correct, but I don't know if it's possible to make it when you're deserializing something, it's almost like an inherent property that it could be, you could run into some kind of runtime exception if there's corrupted data that you're trying to deserialize.
Yeah.
Yeah, so trying to think if this helps at all with that. This will make it so that you would never write a buggy client or server or whatever, but somebody else would write a buggy client or server, and then
Right. Yeah, if someone sends you garbage.
But this is more like a parser error, right? Which in a sense is a type error. So
Well, you could protect against malicious type things if someone's like can figure out a way to take advantage of the protocol, like maybe they read into out of index memory or some crazy nonsense, but
yeah, I'll call your endpoints in a way that you didn't anticipate, right? It's some kind of strange order that can open some resources that you didn't expect. Because this is like a very difficult thing. When something is dynamic, right? You have some kind of, for example, firewall that you are opening. You have some kind of knock-knock service to open a firewall, right? And you have many different services like that. And how can you track? This is a completely dynamic thing. You like a static type that doesn't give you anything for that.
yeah, it does. That's exactly the example here.
But you mean a static in the sense that you only have a guarantee of some structure, but you don't have anything dynamic like a race condition or anything else.
Yes, you do. Yes, if you have a sufficiently powerful static type system, you can express session types. Then you can express all of that stuff in the type system.
Okay, but by static type I mean like types like Java or.
You mean crappy type systems? Yeah.
Not the penalty types. Okay, yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum, as far as trying to protect yourself from garbage, yeah. So where is it? My little thesis here. Is it? I'm trying to remember which was the article. Is it this one? Right. Yeah, computers are getting smaller, faster, more connected, more capable. When it comes to security, everything's broken. The first bit of this is from Mark Miller. The Everything is Broken is from, I forget what her name is. Meredith. Quinn Norton, sorry. Meredith is somebody else. So the two tools I see is, along with correct by construction software and object capability discipline. So correct by construction software is what you do with Idris or Coke or any of those, right? You make it so that at compile time, you know that your thing is correct. Now, then there's all the other crazy people around the world, right? And if you have to deal with their code, so this game host thing is sort of it's talking about object capability discipline. It's only a couple pages of code. It's kind of fun to look at. It's a couple pages of code, and it runs on this little teeny $25 computer. It's really fun.
And it's completely safe, right?
Well, that's my conjecture.
You're running this on this XS.
Right. Yeah, my next step is to turn this into a web server because the little thing has got Wi-Fi and everything, and say, okay, world, see if you can crash it.
But you need to write your own web server, right? Or
no, there's libraries. They've got HTTP libraries.
But you need special libraries, right? For everything. You cannot use the existing libraries, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, they
Or better question is, how much is reduced this
How much is it reduced? Not at all. It's really bleeding edge. It passes like 99% of the new test suite. It's got all the modern features of JavaScript plus the secure compartment stuff. It's really nice.
Okay, that's nice. You're using interpolation, string interpolation. So
Yeah, all the goodies.
Wow. Yeah.
So this is their HTTP library. It's sort of, it's not doing HTTP2, and I don't know if it does chunked encoding or some of those things, but hey.
Okay.
HTTP is not that big a deal.
Definitely.
It can certainly be a little web server or a little web client and fetch things.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I've done. So there's the manifest things down here somewhere. You have to write a file like this that says, okay, how much of the platform do I want available to my thing? So I'm not using anything beyond, I'm using files at runtime. And then there's some kind of base stuff.
I'm interested how specific you can be to specify.
Well, this, you just list stuff. But if I don't say files, then I can't do this.
But you cannot say this only this directory or something.
I think you can. There's ways you can put stars in here. I don't know. But this is a build time instruction. This is a little bit like package.json, but this is instructions to their build tools. So when you run this thing, let me show you. Right, so
I was wondering why they are not using the existing debugger. Why they have written their own.
What do you mean existing debugger?
For example, in Chrome, you have like a debugger who.
Right. Well, that would be using Chrome's JavaScript engine, right?
No, you can just only use Chrome debugger. You just connect to some port HTTP and.
Oh, okay. So they didn't. Yeah, I guess their tools could have exported that network interface, but they don't. I mean, they're embedded software guys. They're used to recreating the whole world, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's right.
Right. Okay, so I'm in my directory that's got a manifest and a couple things. Now, will this run at runtime? Because I've done, you can run it on Linux. Where'd the debugger go? Oh, I have to run the excess bug.
And how it's now, where is the entry point?
It has to be called main.
Okay.
But so let's see. If I run this thing on the actual device, I'm not sure. So it builds it builds an operating system all the way from the bottom. Recipe for target flash failed. Oh, I don't have it connected. There we go.
And this board is Arduino or?
It's a little more powerful than that. It's got like a half a gigabyte of RAM and 4 gigabytes of ROM, flash ROM or whatever. Oh, permission denied. What are you doing here? Oh, wait. I remember. Right. So it's got this, there's a thing called FreeRTOS. It builds an operating system and a TCP, well, actually the TCP stack, I didn't ask for that, so it may or may not be there. And then,
We used FreeRTOS at one of my last jobs.
and I'm not sure what it's doing. It doesn't have, P1 and P2 are read at runtime, and I don't know how those would get to the device. So, okay, so I don't really expect that to work, but if I run it on Linux, was I messing around with something here? $115. What's going on here? Yeah. So this was me trying to attack the system. Suppose, okay, so let's back up here a little bit. Okay, so main, it gets a hold of the file system. So the top level main runs in kind of the anything goes environment, all right? So you got access to the network and the files, and you can launch missiles and threaten the president and all this kind of stuff, right? By email. Okay, so I can access files at the top level. And then I have created a function that gives you the time, a promise for the time, because in the safe world, you shouldn't be able to figure out how long it takes to run a piece of code. Like if you could take the time and then run a loop from 1 to 1,000 and then take your time again, you might be able to do one of these weird timing attacks. So you always get a promise for the time, so you don't really know. It's like all your I/O is asynchronous, so even the clock. And then since JavaScript has, the JavaScript built-ins include a random number generator and the access to the current date, I have sort of bound those to something that never does anything. So this makes a sort of secure compartment. Well, it makes a compartment that was secure except for 2 things, and I turned those 2 things off. Okay, and then here's the little asynchronous file I/O thing. You give me a file name, I'm going to open the file and give you back a promise for the contents. Okay, so I've got this game host thing loaded into a component, and I'm going to take that module, its default export. I'm going to give it access to this turn clock and reading files. And it's an asynchronous function, so it's going to give me back a promise. And when the promise is resolved, I'm just going to trace done. So is the main routine reasonably clear?
Yeah, if you can just say what is the compartment.
Right.
Are you saying that you somehow want to hide these 2 global variables?
Right. So new compartment is a little bit like require. It's going to load game host, but it's going to load it in an environment that only has the JavaScript top level things. It doesn't have, you can't do this. You can't import the file thing inside GameHost.
Okay.
All right.
And the game host is your file. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You can import other JavaScript modules, but under the same restrictions. They're all loaded into a sort of a safe scope. Okay. So our default export is this function that takes the clock and read file, and we're not using the clock anymore, but I was just testing that it would work earlier. And all of our I/O is asynchronous, so we await the contents of P1 and the contents of P2. And then this syntax, basically, it's the comma operator. So it basically takes the first value and throws it away and gives you the second value. And it's written this way to prevent some kind of weird this capture or something. So I'd have to look up exactly why it's written that way. It might be that it works okay if you just write your val without the one comma. It's slightly less safe, but when you're inside the safe world, you don't have to be so careful, I don't think. Anyway, it works. I forget whether it's necessary. Anyway, so you read the contents of P1 and you evaluate it. Okay? And the P1 and P2 are kind of like attacker written code, if you will. They're just read in from the great big wide world. And they're expected to give you back objects with a .name thing and a .play thing. And if they don't, then it'll just crash here, right? If there's no .name, then you'll get a reference error and it'll die, but it'll die safely. Okay, so score 1 and score 2 are 0. The payoff 1 and payoff 2 are also 0. We're going to take 32 turns arbitrarily. We're going to say, let's do this. Turn this guy back off. And I have to change something in the actual code so that it recompiles. That was interesting. Unhandled function. Why are you not running anything? There, okay. Okay, so player A calls himself Fibonacci. Player B calls himself tit for tat. Have you guys ever heard of tit for tat in this context?
Yeah, I've heard some.
No.
So basically, if in each round you're either nice to the other guy or you're not nice to the other guy, and tit for tat does whatever the other guy did previously. So if you're not nice to me, I'm going to be not nice to you this time. If you were nice to me last time, I'm going to be nice to you this time. Turns out to be the optimal strategy, I think. I read somewhere. Okay, and the other guy just cheats on every Fibonacci number. Okay, so beginning of round 1, the score is 0 to 0. 1 is a Fibonacci number, so player A defects. And player B doesn't defect just because tit for tat starts with not defecting by arbitrarily. Could have been either way. And so since player A defected and player B didn't, player A spends no time in jail and player B spends 3 years in jail. Okay?
Okay.
Right. Okay, at the beginning of score 2, it's 0 to -3. 2 is also a Fibonacci number, so player A defects. This time, according to tit for tat, player B defects, and so they both spend 2 years in jail. They both told on the other guy, and they both spend 2 years in jail. And so Fibonacci 1, Fibonacci 2, Fibonacci 3, 4 is not a Fibonacci number. So he tit for tat defects because the last time that guy did, but then on round 5, tit for tat does not defect, but Fibonacci is, and 5 is a Fibonacci number, so player A does defect and so on. It's kind of remarkable that the score ends up tied around 31. Okay, so this line does the logging like that. And then we're going to call player one's play function, and we're going to give it the outcome of the previous round. Tell the strategy about the previous outcome. That's what allows tit for tat to tell whether the other guy defected or not, because I can tell whether how many years I spent in jail. And I don't care what this guy returns, I'm always going to turn it into either a 1 or a 0 somehow, right? So now I know that D1 and D2 are just bits. And then I turn those 2 bits into 1 integer, and so that I can look them up into the payoff matrix. And so the payoff 1 and payoff 2, you look them up, and then you print out the results, and then you add the payoffs to the score and continue. So this attacker written, it's written by the designer. And then this is Fibonacci, and this is tit for tat. Basically, if I spent 3 or 2 years in jail, then the other guy must have told on me. But if I try to access the clock and say, oh, well, between 3 and 4 in the afternoon, I'm going to defect, but not between 5 and 6 p.m., then it'll throw. And then the runtime files don't cause it to recompile. So I'm gonna, yeah, so it's through.
So you don't have protection to, for example, call some other method on the object or something like that.
Right. So
or this is like one of the securities, right? There is probably other. Because I'm thinking that changing the prototype of the object is
right. So that's the scary. You go last dot proto. Is it dot proto or dot prototype? I don't know.
It should be prototype, but without underscores.
Let's see if we can get at it at all. First of all, I think we can. I probably could just run it again too, couldn't I? I probably don't have to. Okay, the prototype is undefined.
But is it a last the object or?
It's an integer.
Yeah.
So if we passed in something like, so if we passed in, then the guy could read files, right?
Yeah.
So we may or may not want to allow that. What's another thing? If we passed in,
Can you just pass it any object?
right.
Just create a new object and try to.
So that's an object, right? The scores.
Yeah. Maybe we can change the prototype of this. All right.
Right. Well, let's see. Where's something we care about? Let's see. Oh no, it's a function thingy, And the thingy.
This looks very, very similar to effects and how they are looking at effects. You know, you're supplying all the capabilities, all the effects that you can call, right?
All the effects, you're saying?
All the effects.
Right. Yes.
And
In fact, that's one of the definitions of object capabilities. Is that the only way you can have effects is by somebody handing you the capability to do so. I've never written prototype, or I hardly ever write prototype stuff. Okay, so is that how you do something?
Yeah, exactly.
You make a constructor and there's a function. All right. So and right.
Missiles with flowers.
Yeah. This guy thinks he's growing flowers, and this guy goes, "You're now going to launch missiles," right? And I think maybe this attack is going to succeed. I think we have not protected against it, but we can. Where's the go? But oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh no.
Is it problem with? Did you run the code? You're missing semicolon after function. Is this important to me?
I don't think so. Maybe, I don't think so. Dang it. How do I just play it again? That's annoying. Okay, here we go. Ready? Okay, so it's flowers all the time. So now what if I attack myself?
What do you mean? If you change, yeah.
I don't know how this is supposed to work in regular JavaScript.
Yeah, this should work.
So ODOT prototype is undefined again. That's kind of surprising. Wait, is that how it works?
Yeah. Before there was like a underscore prototype. Now it should work.
Okay, that's the constructor.prototype. Yeah, so if you want to look at the prototype of the individual thingy, it's like that, right?
This is still supported, or just is in files.
If I want to look at thingy.prototype, it's like that, if I spell it right. But if I want to look at the prototype of an individual thing, it looks to me like I read it this way.
But you can change the prototype of the all instances, right?
Yeah, that's what this is doing. Because all of the instances share the same prototype. That's kind of what prototype.
They should be the same object, right?
Yeah, okay. So now we're launching missiles. So and worse yet, if we make and we give that guy 01 and we call down here, we say 02, grow flowers, it's still going to screw it up, right?
Yeah. Indeed.
Mm-hmm. It did not.
Okay.
Huh. So
Maybe this object has frozen properties or something.
yeah, it could be that, but that in a component things are frozen by default. There's a thing called Frozen Realms, which is in the same neighborhood. Let's see. In fact, that's what inspired me to buy this thing. Anyway. Blah. Have to look more closely. Yeah, because the way I was going to prevent this from screwing things up was that I was going to do one dot.
What exactly do you freezing with this freeze? Just the own properties of this object. Right? I didn't use the freeze.
Yeah, I'm not really sure that the Agoric folks have a thing called Harden that used to be called Def anyway, that would chase down the prototype and stuff and make sure it froze all the right things. I'm going to have to look into how this works, why that attack failed.
Because I was reading that when you froze something, you cannot unfroze.
Right.
So when you froze something and send to someone, you have frozen objects.
Yeah. But I don't think O1 is frozen. So I don't know why. It seems to me like I sent this guy the capability to screw up things. But I'm not sure why not. Maybe Thingy got frozen.
Or you mean they are doing automatically this kind of stuff? To just when you send something to compartment.
Yeah, I have to figure out what's going on here. I'm gonna have to ask somebody that really knows what's going on, or do some documentation.
Your code is your complete code is in one compartment, right? So calling display method is just a regular code, but inside your compartment. It's nothing special. Calling on P2, calling play. It's just a regular method, right?
Yeah.
Inside your compartment. It's not something special.
Right.
I mean, the code is from different source because you call them out.
Right. I don't. Yeah, they talk about what eval does in somewhere. Yeah, I'll have to figure that out. Well, all right, only 3 of us left. Any closing remarks? I think I'm going to go do some things in the real world.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. I haven't followed exactly.
Okay, so Tomislav, exercise for you at home. Do the Prisoner's Dilemma game host in Rolang.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. Okay, I will first look at the Archon API. But yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll try it. Yeah, it should be easy, right?
Right.
Yeah, the evolutionary game theory. You start with the always cooperate and the bully, and then I think the bully wins after some number of 100 generations, and then you introduce the tit for tat, and after 100 generations, the tit for tat beats the always cooperate, but the bully beats him after 200 generations. And then you have the generous tit for tat, who forgives 1/3 of the time. And they weren't sure why that was optimal, why 1/3 of the time was optimal. But the generous tit for tat broke the cycles of retaliation that happened between tit for tats. By forgiving 1/3 of the time, those cycles were broken. And then ultimately Pavlov beat generous tit for tat. And the issue always is, who beats Pavlov? And that's, I guess.
And what is the Pavlov strategy?
I'm sorry?
What is the Pavlov strategy? You said Pavlov.
Pavlov, yeah, it's basically Bayesian learning. Pavlov learns his behavior like an animal.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. But this implies some kind of bigger memory, right? If you have, if you just need to memorize the last move, right?
Yeah.
With the generous, you need to remember even more, and with the power, you need to remember even more.
Well, these things can have as much state as you like. Probably last to just be the bit, whether the other guy defected or not the score. But anyway.
So who beats Pavlov? That's our homework.
A better power.
Okay, folks. Thank you much.
Thanks, Dan. It was very.
I wanted to learn about ambient calculus at some point. And,
What is the relation between ambient calculus and row calculus?
yeah, that's what I'd like to do. Probably should be one of the Friday sessions.
Yeah. I mean,
In the computational calculus course or whatever, did he go over ambient calculus?
yeah, he was talking about a lot of things, but you know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In the moment, you know something, you know, but later.
Right. I certainly know that feeling. I think I knew what an eigenvector was at one point in my life. I took a linear algebra class.
Hey,
All right. Bye, guys.
guys. Have a good one.
Yes.
Bye.